Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, guys. So as the title of this episode says, and as I've talked about a few times recently on my podcast, I kind of alluded to this topic coming. I work part-time in my business right now, as in like part-time hours, around 20 hours a week typically, and sometimes even less than that. And my business brings in multiple five figures each month in profits and has done more than $1 million in profits in the 6 years that I've had it. So in this episode, I'm going to get super specific, super practical as to how I'm doing this exactly, like how it works to have a business that earns well, but also not being like working myself into the ground every day to make it happen. So this transition to part-time hours has happened for me since becoming a mom, like the true part-time hours. But even worth noting, before then, I've never been someone who was working like 50 hours a week or anything like crazy or than that at any point in my business, which we're going to talk about. Less hours and more focused hours has always been a priority for me. So no matter what your current situation is, maybe you literally don't have more hours to put into your business because you're like, I have another full-time job or part-time job, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom who's working on your business on the side, or maybe you're like, I actually am interested in this episode just because I want to be able to work less. Maybe that's why I caught your eye. Whatever the reason, I think these tips and hopefully seeing how I'm doing things a bit behind the scenes will help you build a successful business that is working the amount of time that you want to be working and spending your time doing other things you love and spending time with the people you love outside of your work. So I got 5 ways for you. Let's dive in. Okay, so again, the focus here of this episode, just to kind of like clarify what I'm sharing 5 ways, 5 things I'm doing in my business that allow me to work part-time hours, but still bring in 5 figures a month in profits. So the first way, and this is like almost to backpedal a little bit, but I feel like this is so worth explaining. So the explanation, however you want to call it, is that I haven't worked part-time hours the whole time I've had my business. And I just think that's so good to clarify because so often we hear people say like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. You can do it too. But the truth is I haven't worked part-time hours the whole time I've had my business. But in addition to that, it's worth saying, I also have never worked crazy 60, 70 hours a week, burn myself out type of life either. So it's both for me, both that I did not do this the whole time and that I did not do the crazy opposite of this the whole time either. So we hear so many entrepreneurial success stories that start out with the like, I built a successful business. I was working 100 hours a week. I wasn't sleeping. I had no social life. I neglected my marriage. I was unhealthy. Maybe even the doctor diagnosed them with something, telling them they had to stop their business. But they had a lot of money and it didn't lead to happiness and they were so overworked. And now they're going to teach you how to build a business, not doing what I did, right? So preaching that like hustle isn't the answer. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those stories. I get that if that's your story, that's your story. But I've often so many times heard that story and the person is saying, hustle isn't the answer. You don't have to work this much to build your business the way I did. But then I can look at their business and I'm like, but wait, like you did hustle like crazy. And that is what got you to where you are. So like, how are you saying that that's not, what works when it's what worked for you, right? Has anyone ever had that experience? Hopefully I'm explaining that well. But I've had that experience many times with those types of stories. And now people, again, can't help if that's their story. And I'm happy they got to where they are and realized that hustling to death is not the answer. But then I've also looked at it and been like, but wait, that is what you did to get your business where it is now. So anyway, I say all that to say though, when I tell you that I work part-time hours right now, which is the focus of this episode, I'm also telling you I have worked more hours than that in the past. And I didn't burn myself out prior to this building my business to the point where I could work part-time hours. So I've never been a crazy work hours person, even before becoming a mom, even before I was pregnant. I actually look back at the early days of my business and my thought is like, I could have stood to work a little bit more because I have been a very consistent 30 to 40 hour a week person the whole 6 years I've had my business, which by the way, fun fact, this episode is actually airing on my business's 6-year birthday, anniversary, whatever you want to call it. I actually was originally going to do an episode today that was more themed around 6 years in business, but I felt more passionate in talking about this topic right now. So I'm going to save the business anniversary episode for probably a few weeks from now. So a bit delayed, but yeah, literally today, the day you're listening to this, if you're listening to this when it airs, I've been in business officially 6 years. And like I'm saying right now, I've never really been one to work crazy hours. I basically always capped myself at around 40 to 45 hours, unless it was a unique circumstance that week. And more so my average in the time I've been in business was probably 35-hour weeks. So you can build your business without working crazy hours, without the working yourself to death and burning out. And you can do part-time hours, but I just do want to say I did not build my business on truly 20 hours a week. I built my business on more 30 to 40 hours a week. And then there were those unique circumstances. So an example of a unique circumstance though, whenever Adam would go out of town for work trips, which I think back on again, those first maybe, 2 to 4 years of my business, he didn't go out of town too often, but when he did, it would be for an entire week of him being away. And I would typically do some amazing big work project while he was gone and usually work a lot more than usual that week. For example, when I started this podcast, it was actually while Adam was out of town and I the week he was gone, I came up with the branding for it, the name, the synopsis, all of that. During that week he was gone. I did some other stuff too that week, obviously, but I was able to kind of deep dive and focus. So I had some times like that where then, him being out of town led me to work more. I'm sure many of you guys can relate to that. When your spouse or maybe your kids are away or you're away from them, you're a lot more productive. So that was kind of how I was. But anyway, to go back to the question from the title of this episode, how am I doing part-time work with a multiple 6-figure year business? I did not do part-time hours the whole time I was building it. And I also did not burn myself out like crazy with work hours fueled by coffee all night long. I've always had a normal work schedule. And I do believe you can build a business this way and not ever go through that sad success story of having the insane burnout from over hustling that so many entrepreneurs go through and then, share with us. I think you can avoid that and still build a really successful business. And I do think you can build a successful business on part-time hours. But again, my hours have not always been that way. So anyway, that's way number one. And now the other things I'm about to share with you, the rest of these 4 tips are all going to be a bit more practical. That one's more of almost a caveat tip that I wanted to share. So anyway, okay, let's go to the second one. So keys to part-time hours with making multiple 5 figures a month. Okay, so I have help from amazing contractors and team members. And this, when I think about if these were to go in any particular order of importance, this would actually be the number one way. I think this is the biggest key in all the tips I'm sharing with you. The overall hours being put into my business is not 20 hours a week. So that might be what I'm putting into my business right now. But there is more hours, more manpower, more effort, all of that being put into my business than 40 hours a week. It's just not from all of me. But I also want to say too, I wish I could total this up. It's actually not too much more than 40 hours a week still though. Even between the different people working in my business, which I'm about to talk about, because my team's not overworking either. And there aren't that many of us. But anyway, having help is something that will allow you to work less and will allow you to, when you are working, hone in on your zone of genius and do the things only you can do of your business, in your business. So I feel really passionate about this. And I really do believe help is one of the things that, like, when I look back on my business and like what's helped me grow the way I have and made it, again, grow with ease and without that burnout that I was talking about a moment ago. I think it is having a team. And that comes from a girl who actually always wanted to stay a solopreneur because I thought having help would be more work. And I didn't want to have to lead people. And I'm someone who really enjoys independence and kind of working alone. I can be pretty introverted. I work well alone, basically. And so I had early in my business, I was like, oh, no, I don't want a team. I don't want to build an agency. I don't really want to work with other people. I like doing it myself. And that was almost something that even attracted me to entrepreneurship, was like just kind of doing stuff on my own. But once I did start hiring and getting help, it all made sense. And it was like a fast shift for me, really, of like, wow, I can't imagine doing this any other way. Like, this is the smart way to do it. This is the right way to do it. This is a fun way to do it, like how to have more fun in your business. Having people that are working alongside you is certainly one way. So to explain how I have help and to give this one context, again, because I think this is a huge number one key here. So I have 3 people who I consider core team members, and they are all like the inner circle, so to speak, when I think about my team. So they come to team meetings. They're in the business more so like day in and day out. And when I say there's 3 of them, one of them is actually a new hire. So for years, the core team was just me and one other person who is Abby. Y'all have heard me talk about her before. And then about a year ago, I think, gosh, I get my timelines mixed up. We hired Stacy. And so for like 2 years now, it's been Abby and Stacy. And now we have a third person joining us, Nicole. So it's me, Abby, Stacy, and Nicole. And that's like who I would consider the core team. And they're all part-time as well and are in contractor roles within my business. So none of us are doing like 40 hours a week. None of us are doing like that full-time work. And I actually am working the most of all of us at my like 20 hours a week level. So outside of the core team though, okay, so I said they're the core team. They're like the inner circle. We have 8 other contractors who we work with every week or monthly or just semi-regularly on like an as-needed basis. So for example, I have a bookkeeper who's awesome. She's been on the podcast. And I pay her monthly and I work with her consistently for bookkeeping. So she's like a team member too, but kind of in a different regard. Like she's not coming to team meetings and that sort of thing. I also have an amazing podcast editor. Shout out to Natalie. She's been with me the whole time I've had this podcast. And she's editing episodes every time there's an episode ready. And so she's taking that audio that I give her to completion and bringing it live for you all to hear. So she's also a team member, but again, in a different way. And those are 2 people who are in the business a lot. But then I also work with a copywriter super often. My mother-in-law actually does work in my business, and we have a video editor who we work with as needed. And there have been seasons with that video editor. His name's AJ, where we're like doing a lot more with him and then a lot less with him. But that gives you a little bit of a glimpse into like the not doing this aloneness of my business. And that is a huge key to you as the CEO of the business being able to work less hours if that's your desire. So I truly believe a key to my success has been hiring excellent people. Seriously, there's like, if you look even outside of the work hours, just a key to like growing a successful business in general is hiring excellent people and then learning how to delegate and lead them to the best of your ability and really like cultivate that relationship, create momentum in your business. I mean, so many things. And I was always like debating doing this, but I'm going to drop a little spoiler right here. And I probably actually will leave this only as a podcast spoiler for now. So we'll not be sharing about this like on emails or on Instagram or anything like that. But I'm working on my next course right now. And actually like, 2 weeks ago from when you guys are going to hear this, I asked on Instagram, like, any guesses of what the new course is going to be. And a few people guessed it right. I told those people they were right, but I didn't share what the course is. But the next course, it's about building your team. And I'm so excited about it because, again, when I think about like, how can you scale your business sustainably? How can you not burn out, earn more money in your business, build a thriving business, all of those things. I think teams is a huge part of that. So in this course, I'm going to be teaching you everything teams step by step, from like deciding what you need help with, to job postings, interviewing people, team meetings, onboarding, how to work on your leadership skills, delegating, deciding what to pay people, and some of those like more nuanced, awkward conversations that people don't talk about that much. And you're also going to see things like our real team meetings, like a recording of that, a real job interview, and other kind of behind the scenes stuff. So I've had help in my business since mid 2018, and like it's changed and evolved so much over time. Like as I'm talking about what my team looks like now, in 2018, it was a whole lot different. And so I'm really excited to like pull back the curtain and share with you guys like how you can also build a team, and create that momentum in your business from having help. So anyway, if you do want more info on the course though, I haven't made this page yet, but I'm going to put some info at elizabethmccravy.com/teams with an S, teams. I'll put some info there that you can go look at once you're done listening to this podcast episode, or even while you're listening right now. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. I'll put some info. I think I'm going to do a survey too. So you could tell me if you are interested in this course, kind of like what you really would feel is essential for you to learn about building a team, like what stuff you want to include in the course. So anyway, go to elizabethmccravy.com/teams if you want more info on that. And yeah, that's my second way here though, is that I have help from amazing contractors and team members. And that's how I'm able to work part-time and bring in 5 figures a month in my business. Okay, now we got 3 more ways to talk through. So way number 3, I'm imperfectly intentional with my time in my business and outside of my business. So emphasis here though on the imperfectly, because you'll never get this perfect 100% of the time. I've had to like accept that of like, as much as I want to like be intentional when I'm with my son Colin and be intentional when I'm working and focus on that and be present, I still waste time. I still spend too much time on things that don't matter that much. I'm still distracted when I'm with Colin and we'll think about work stuff or want to like check my email on my phone, all of that. But overall, I try to be really productive when I'm working and focus on things that only I can do that move the business forward. and be intentional and be in the moment when I'm working. So when you know that you only have 20 hours a week to work, which is truly my situation right now, I can't remember if I already said this in the episode or not, but we don't have childcare help. Adam and I are taking care of Colin. We don't have a nanny. We're not using daycare. And we are like both taking care of him while both working. Adam is in graduate school, and then I'm running my business here, and he's also running our real estate business. So we have a lot of things going on. He also has clients. He's in graduate school for mental health counseling. And right now he's seeing 5 clients a week for counseling. So anyway, like we're doing a lot of stuff and splitting childcare between the two of us. So like 20 hours ish a week is truly all I have, unless I'm wanting to like wake up at 4 a.m. before Colin or stay up super late working after he's asleep, which I honestly don't want to do. And I'm not doing that right now. Maybe another season, that will be my story. But right now, Colin's typically my alarm clock. And once I put him to sleep at night, I'm like really ready to like kind of unwind and maybe watch some TV or read a book or hang out with Adam, and not really ready to dive back into work most nights. So anyway, 20 hours a week though, that's truly like about what I have, maybe 15 some weeks, maybe 25 others. And so I got to be more intentional, right? When I know that's all the time I have. And for me too, when I'm working, because I work from home, and because Adam is with Colin at home when he's taking care of Colin while I'm working, I can literally hear Adam and Colin downstairs playing, and I'm missing out on what they're doing. And that makes me desire even more to be intentional. So like when I'm up here in my office, I don't want to be just like sitting here at my desk randomly scrolling through Instagram while I'm also missing out on my amazing son, like laughing and giggling at something funny Adam said. And I'm like hearing that downstairs. I don't want to feel like I'm just wasting my time up here, being away from the people who matter most to me and doing something honestly that I really like would enjoy doing, like being with my son. Although I also really enjoy work. I actually think being able to work part-time and then take care of Colin the other half of that time has been really fulfilling and a nice balance for me. But anyway, I think sometimes though, if we feel too much pressure to like be productive, work on the right things, always make sure you're like focusing when you're away from your child, that can just stress us out. Like you're so focused on like quote unquote only the most productive things that it can almost paralyze you into not doing anything. So I don't like to think that way, but that's me. So I'm focused on being intentional with my time, whether it's time with Colin or time working. And I also try to focus on only the things that move my business forward and the things only I can do, which really means prioritizing. And in this season, letting some things go that I'm like, is that really like going to move my business in the direction I'm wanting to go? Or is that busy work? And then also asking the question, is that something only I can do? Or is that something one of my amazing team members I just talked about? Is that something they could do better or the same as me? So for example, like right now, I am recording this podcast episode and I outlined it right beforehand. So basically during Colin's first nap today, just to give you a little behind the scenes, I outlined this episode. It took me like an hour and a half to outline. And now I am recording it and it is during Colin's awake time. So he woke up from his nap, I fed him, and now Adam's downstairs playing with him while I record this. And this is stuff only I can do. Like I'm the person who is coming up with the podcast content and then creating it and all that part of it. So that's something that's like a really good thing for me to work on in my business and also something I super enjoy. But then there's other things that I can ask team members to do. So for example, this week, Abby is redesigning our email signatures because they just need some updating. You know, they've been the same for a while and we just hired someone new, right? So I'm like, we need to update these. So she's working on that. And she also updated a landing page for one of our freebies, like redesigned it and show it. And would I have enjoyed doing those things? Yes, actually, I think I would have super enjoyed doing the landing page because I really like working on stuff and show it. And I love making landing pages. And then the email signatures, I would have enjoyed that too, but maybe a little bit less. I made our current email signatures, so I could in my mind be like, well, I made these. I need to just be the one that edits them and does the updates, right? But instead, I asked Abby to do it. And could Abby do this better or just as well as me? Yes, 100%. And I would actually argue better because she especially with the email signature, is more focused on this as a project. Whereas for me, I would have just been like, oh shoot, like I'm working on this. It's taken me an hour to like get these new concepts for the email signature. And I should have been recording a podcast, or I should have been working on my new course. That's kind of how I could be thinking, is that would have been a better use of time. And Abby instead did like an awesome job coming up with this email signatures and making the landing page. So that's something that was good for me to delegate and be intentional with my time to actually like not work on those things. Another example, I've recently done a few copywriting projects with my amazing copywriter, Emily from Emily Writes Well. She's also been on the podcast before. I can link to that episode, but she's just an incredible copywriter. And I really enjoy working with her. And again, like we've worked on so many projects already this year, and it's just March. But I also like writing, right? Like I can write copy. I actually think I'm a pretty good writer, but Emily's a better writer. And what takes her just a few hours to do, and what like from my side of the story, I'm like, wow, she's so fast. Like comes so easy to her. Those same projects would have been a week-long stressful project for me that would have felt like something I didn't really have time for. So I delegate. Right. That's a great example of a time where like in my business makes so much sense to pay Emily to do it and completely rock that project. And do a better job than I could have, and give me my time back to do other stuff that only I can do, right? And then when I'm working, I'm intentional with my time. So another way this plays out though, before a nap or before I'm about to get up to like close my office door and sit down to work, I try to always know what I'm going to work on next, like what's coming next for me. So rarely right now, again, I like do not do this perfectly at all, but rarely do I sit down at my desk and think, like what should I do today? Like what should I work on right now? I could do this. I could do that. I typically try to make the plan before I go into it. So for example, I might be feeding Colin before his nap time, and then like in the process of putting him down for his nap. And while I'm feeding him, instead of scrolling Instagram, I try to think about like, okay, what should my next step be after I'm done feeding him? Like what on my to-do list could I work on next? And this actually does not come naturally to me at all to think ahead like this. I think I might have shared this on like the postpartum episode I recorded, but like Adam has been a huge help in me getting good at this since having Colin, because early on, and again, this was on maternity leave, so I wasn't like trying to be super productive, but it is like, oh my gosh, when your baby's actually sleeping, like you should do something enjoyable. But what would happen is we'd get Colin down for a nap, which sometimes felt like it took 1,000 years to get him to go to sleep, but he's finally asleep. And Adam would ask me like, okay, what are you going to do during this nap? And Adam like already he's like headed to it. He's got the thing he's going to do during his nap. And then I'm over here like, I don't know. I could go to the gym. I could read a book. Oh, I need to fold the laundry though. I need to make dinner. What about unloading the dishwasher? I also could go work in my business. I could read my email. I have a podcast I could work on. What should I do? And he's like, just do something. Like it doesn't matter what, just do something. And he'd encourage me to figure it out ahead of time. So oftentimes, like again, on my maternity leave, we'd be playing with Colin, and then he's like, okay, we're going to have a nap soon. Like, Elizabeth, what are you going to do during Colin's nap? Reminding me to like be intentional with that. So I try to be more intentional in that way of like thinking ahead, planning ahead on what I'm going to do in these pockets of work I do have that are like way more interrupted in this season of life. Like I'm typically having like 2-ish hour stretches of work versus like, 4 hours straight uninterrupted, that sort of thing, which used to be more of my story. It's been way more like broken up, which really helps with the figuring out ahead of time though. So I'm not sitting down at my desk being like, what should I work on? I more so can like come in with a plan. So that's a little tip there. Like when you are working less and you have less time to work, don't waste your time working, thinking about what you're going to work on. Like maybe while you're driving to your office or whatever it is, like just in those little downtime moments. Like, and for me, maybe it's like when I'm playing with my son, like, yes, I'm present with him, but maybe in those like last 5 minutes while he's having some independent play, I'm thinking about like, okay, what am I going to do next? And kind of making maybe a to-do list for like the things I'm going to work on, whatever it is. Again, it's a work in progress for me, but that's something that has truly helped me make the 20 hours a week I'm working really, really, truly count. And being really intentional with them. and making sure the 20 hours are actually moving my business forward versus just doing busy work that kind of is keeping me occupied. Okay, and the fourth way, and I actually have less to say about this one, but it's like something you gotta know, right? My business model is scalable products. So selling templates and then digital courses. So I cannot talk about working less and having a business that is like able to do what it's doing without talking about my business model, right? So my business has not always been this way. But for the last, I'm trying to think of how long, really, 2 to 3 years, I guess, the majority of my revenue is from scalable efforts, meaning that I've made something once and can sell it multiple times versus making something once for one person and working in that one-to-one way. So I still do client work because I want to stay sharp in that regard. And I do enjoy working with clients, but the majority of my business is what people like to call passive income, which I still kind of hate that word. I prefer the word scalable. I think to me, passive can sound a little sleazy and also inaccurate because a passive income business model is actually not truly passive. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But it is you can truly make money while you're sleeping. Again, even though I hate that type of language, but I regularly make money while I'm sleeping. That is the truth of it. Someone will buy a template who lives in Australia or some other place besides where I live, and I wake up to a template sale. That is a real thing that happens. But again, I prefer the word scalable, and I don't love some of the language around passive income. I actually did a whole podcast episode on this, which I'll link to and note the number of it in the show notes for this episode. It's a pretty short episode talking about scalable versus passive income. But anyway, my business model is the scalable income model, and this business model sets you up well to work less hours because the hours input is not as directly attached to the earning, if that makes sense. So do I think you should start with this business model? If you're a brand new business owner listening to this, I would say for most people, starting with things like templates and courses is actually not the way to go. Again, there's some nuances that depending on your background and what you're doing. But for most people, it makes sense to start with client work and get really good at what you're doing, learn what people are looking for, and then make products later if you want to, or you can scale by hiring a team. There's so many different ways, but starting with services will help your products later be even better because you actually know what people need and want. It also helps you build an audience and a desire and need for the product you're planning to offer. It helps you learn even what that product could be. So many things. So I'm really glad I built my business the way I did. I started with services and affiliate income. That was I had that type of scalable income early on because I have done affiliate income the whole time I've had my business. But starting with services and then transitioning to services and templates and now also adding in courses has been really cool. And so I think this is a key for me again on the 20 hours a week life. And what I'm really grateful for and I'm really proud of, I'm super proud of the business I built in that way. And I think it's okay to say that, pat yourself in the back and be proud of yourself too. But I am proud of myself and proud of this business and that I built it to this type of business to where I can work less, especially in this season of new motherhood where I want to work less. And I'm excited for it to continue to grow and to continue to add more things to this type of business model. But anyway, that's a huge one. So number 4, having a scalable products business model is a huge key for me. Number 5, oh my gosh, this is such a huge key. And again, something I feel I'm always learning and getting better at, hopefully, but it's it's hard to do. So I don't focus on all the projects I want to accomplish at once. Again, something I'm still learning, but when you have less time to work in your business, not everything can be a priority at the same time. So you can't be equally focused on creating your new website, writing a course, doing a sales page, working with that client, hiring someone, reworking your funnels. All of that stuff cannot be your priority priority at the same time. It can be your priority for the whole year, that those are all things you want to do, but you need to have more like one track mind way of doing things, and you'll get a lot more done, especially a lot more done in less hours. So for example, when I created Book.Designer last year, I was very one track mind focused on that. And that didn't mean I halted everything else. So I still released a weekly podcast. I still did some client work during the time I was creating Book.Designer. I was doing client work. I still led weekly team meetings. But overall, my project was the course, and that was it. Like that was my largest focus. I was actually not designing new templates during that time. I was not saying yes to more and more projects. I was saying no to speaking engagements. And that helped me get it all done with less time, because it wasn't like, oh, well, everything's a priority, so what should I work on? And when everything's a priority too, like it might be like Monday, you get a little bit done on that course, right? You get a little bit done working on your course. Now on Tuesday, you're working on your new website, so you get a little bit on that. Now Wednesday, you're trying to hire someone, so you get a little bit done on that. Like, see what I mean? Like it's just a little bit every time. Whereas if you just wait to do some of the stuff later and focus on one thing this week or one thing this month, you're going to get so much more done. So for me at that time, the course was it. That was my priority in that season. So like that was always what I should be working on if I had the question of like, what should I be working on right now? So hopefully that makes sense. But if you want to work less, or if you simply have less time to work, I would encourage you to ask yourself, like, this month, what should my focus be on? Or this week, what should my focus be on? And for me, when I ask that question, it's helpful to even write down, like, what are all your options? Like maybe you just got a website template. So like an option is like that you could work on like redesigning your website and like using this template. Maybe you also have the option of like, there's a course you're wanting to create, or you have this client project you're working on, but the deadline's not that soon. So you have more time. Like there's so many different things. So maybe you write out like, what are all the different possible things you could work on? And then you pick one to be your focus, or two if one of them's really small, whatever it is. But let that be your focus, not all the other things you want to do this year. Those things can still be important and they can still be priorities, but they can come later on. So just basically remember, you can't let all of your goals be a priority all the time. When you do that, nothing's a priority. Instead, it all is just a giant to-do list. So I'm going to repeat that. You can't let all your goals be a priority at the same time, because when you do that, literally nothing's a priority. If all the goals are all a priority, they're all what you're working on, none of them are a priority. Instead, it's just a giant to-do list. So I hope you can like remember that and figure out ways to be more intentional, and focus on like the one thing at a time when you're working on things in your business. So that's it, guys. That's 5 ways I'm able to work part-time in my business and still make 5 figures a month. And I hope this helps you and sparks some ideas for your own business, maybe some goals to work towards, or maybe new ways of thinking about your time, some ideas maybe. If you have questions that come out of this episode, feel free to message me. I'd love to like answer them maybe on another podcast, or just, write you back on Instagram and answer it there. So I'm at Elizabeth McCravey on Instagram. And you can always email me at hello@elizabethmccravey.com. But anyway, I want to recap those. So to recap the 5 things I talked through, 1, the first way is that I haven't always worked part-time hours the whole time I've had my business. But then remember, I talked through how even though that's true, I also was not working like 60 hours a week or anything. But at times I have had more of like a 30 to 40 hour a week standard working amount of time. Second thing, I have help from an amazing team. You can go to elizabethmccravey.com/teams to like get some info on that course that's coming. Number 3, I'm imperfectly intentional with my time. So remember, focusing on knowing what you're going to do ahead of time, really being present, working on things only you can do in your business. Number 4, I have a scalable products business model. And number 5, I don't focus on 1,000 products at once. I let one thing be the priority and then other stuff come later, and being really intentional again with the time I do have to like focus on one thing, and make progress on that. So anyway, I hope this is helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share it with another business friend if you have someone who you think would also enjoy this content. And I haven't mentioned it in a while, but if you are a regular listener to this podcast and you have never left a review, which I know there's a lot of you who this is the case, that you just have never reviewed it. So anyway, if that's you, if you wouldn't mind just marking like 5 stars or however many stars you want to give on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. And then you can just do that, like just leave a rating, or you can also write a review. So like typing something out, it just takes a few minutes. And it makes a huge difference helping other people find the show. And I also just honestly love to read reviews and love to hear from you guys and hear what you think of the show. So that is it. And I'll be back next time with another fun business topic for you. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on elizabethmccravy.com, you'll find show it website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. Maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe even it's that thing that you really feel like is just completely holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my M-Shop templates do. So these are pre-made show it website templates where you can plug and play your content into it with ease and then get started with a website that's designed to actually help you make more money. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, and they're not just pretty, but they are very strategic and with all the strategies I teach on this podcast. And best of all, they're easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at elizabethmccravy.com/shop and come join the M-Shop family of hundreds of happy customers. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off any template as a thank you for being a part of the podcast family. So that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over at elizabethmccravy.com. And if you love this podcast, don't forget that you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts so that you never miss an episode, and leave a rating and review for the show wherever you're listening. Share it with a friend, share it on Instagram or Facebook. That's a great way to support the podcast and get the word out. All right, I'll be back next week with another new episode.